Hi there, I'm Allison Moon and welcome to day 32 of 90 Days of Self-Publishing. A quick disclaimer before I launch into today's video that this coming week I will be at the Lambda Literary Writers Retreat, so I will actually not be necessarily as available to film videos as I usually would be. I don't know if I'll be able to record very much. I'll try to record daily, but that's just the caveat that I might not be able to get videos up every day like usual just for next week, so I apologize in advance for that. Today I wanted to talk about author platforms. Author platforms are this kind of weird marketing term that you hear all the time from random people, how important it is to establish yourself as an author by creating a platform. Now this is really easy if you're a nonfiction writer, right? Like your platform is usually about the book. The problem is if you're a fiction writer, usually you kind of think that your book should just represent itself, right? Like why do you need to have a platform? It's like if you wrote about wizards, how can you possibly create a platform around that, right? And it's true, I mean, it's very difficult to figure that out, but it's also true that you kind of need to figure out what your message is. It's kind of the idea of the elevator pitch. Like, you should be able to tell me what your story's about real quick, but you should also be able to tell me about what you're about real quick. Not to say that your book can't stand alone and it shouldn't stand alone, but people will want to know more. If people like your book, they're going to want to know more about you, they're going to want to know more about your worldview, they're going to want to know more about your opinions, right? Like, it's just important to have a sense of some sort of platform to be able to kind of represent yourself to a community that is really kind of moves quickly through information. So my recommendation is if you're figuring out what your platform is as a fiction author, to think about two main questions. One is, why did you write what you wrote? So not really about the book itself, but why you wrote the book. What's inspired you to spend 2, 3, 4, 5 years of your life working on this specific story? And if it's because you thought you could sell it, that might not be the best route to go. But think about like what compelled you, what excited you. Is it because you have kids and your kids, wanted to hear a story? I mean, like it's the J.K. Rowling thing, right? You created a story to entertain your children, or you got laid off from your office job and you wanted to tell the world about your story that way. I mean, there's so many different angles to go. You just need to be able to figure that one out. So that's a good question. Why did you write the story? And then anything unique about the writing of the story? Did you discover anything in the writing of the story? Were you compelled to write the story after taking a trip around the world or spending a month in Bali or something like, with Eat, Pray, Love? These are all stories that have some real world applications and real world background that make the story more interesting to people. It's not just about wizards, it's about a single mom and her plight. It's not just about, a white woman, experiencing the world. It's about spirituality and realizing one's place in the world. I mean, these are what make stories more compelling to people. So think about those two questions. I mean, for me, a lot of the story is that I wrote this book because I was annoyed by not seeing really great representations of queer women in fantasy literature. And to me, it's like the werewolf thing. Women have always been werewolves, right? Who else changes moods with the moon? To me, it was so obvious. And so I was convinced that there would be plenty of stories about female werewolves out there. And when I did my research, I found that there weren't. And that drove me a little bit crazy. And I was perplexed by that. So I decided, shit, I'll write my own. So that was one of the stories. I'm also a sex educator on the side. And so there's a big deal for me about, the normalization of queer sexuality and how important that is to my writing and my world. So that's a part of it too. And you can definitely tie that into some of the more erotic scenes in my book and what they represent. There are definitely a bunch of different angles of the idea of polyamory, which is something that I experience in my own life, and that's definitely part of the world of my book. There's so many different angles to go in, and I can talk at length about so many of these themes because they're really intentional themes that I put into the book because I believe in them, and also because I can talk about them, and I like to talk about them, and I kind of seek to change the world a little bit through the fiction writing process, and that's something that I think is important for people to realize, and also important for authors to figure out what they actually want to do with their book. Why do they care? What matters about it to them? That's what a platform is. It's not some sort of marketing speak. It's the who and the why of your book. So that's it for today. I'll see you hopefully on Monday, and if not, I will get back to you as soon as I can in the midst of my crazy writing, editing schedule down in Los Angeles. So thanks for joining me, and I'll see you soon.